we recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's CW Pod. We're recording at 9:15 in the morning. We are presented by our friends at Steeple Ridge Bourbon. My friend Ross Peterson is with me. Would it be okay with you to pour a little Steeple Ridge in the coffee, or is it too early?
I have a big meeting coming up here at 11 o'clock. Can we not do that right now?
No, that's fine.
Listen, I love me some Steeple Ridge. We've talked about this on your pod before. Most of my family lives up in Wisconsin.
Just a smidge?
Listen, no is my answer, even though I love Steeple Ridge. The last time we were here, in fact, we talked about this one,
the black label,
the single barrel.
Yes,
that was the
favorite
one I took up to Wisconsin with me to make old fashions, and my uncle, who's a bourbon connoisseur,
yes,
tried that and said tried that straight and said best bourbon thinks he's had.
How about we meet in the middle?
Okay,
and I'll offer you the 92 proof, so then you won't get too messed up for your meeting.
The idea is to be not messed up a smidge for the meeting. So no is the answer. You're already going to get me riled up.
No.
You know what? By the time we're done with the conversations, if we hit the topic list that you told me we're going to touch on today, I'm going to need several shots of that.
Well, it's good to have you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me up.
How's
here,
everything going? I was thinking about you because with Downs leaving.
Yeah, I'm glad I wanted to make sure we talked about that. We didn't even. Yeah,
he's actually going to come sit down with me next week.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We'll do
that will be a lot
thing.
of fun, and I will. I'll make sure I listen to that. We talked about this morning on the Morning Rush. We had Andrew on with us, man. That's a guy that's a true bunker mate of mine. I hate to use that war analogy, but
no, I know what you mean.
For 15 years, I've worked at the station for 20. For those first 5 years, I was kind of a lone wolf there. I was such a young kid at WHO. I was the youngest employee by about 20 years. Cheryl Paneer was about the next youngest, and she was 20 years older than me. She's passed away now.
Cheryl passed away?
Cheryl passed away, 2013. So, dude, I've been to so many funerals from my friends at WHO. Yeah. Andrew also. Andrew, I remember the day he walked in for an interview.
That Cheryl passed away.
Yeah, Christmas Day.
Sweetheart.
Yeah, she was a great lady. I've had a lot of those, man. A lot of wonderful people that I worked with, and Andrew is one of them. You're obviously near the top of that list. Travis is one of my best friends. I knew Andrew's brother in high school, and then out of high school, he and I partied together a lot. We actually, do you know the story of us lighting his car on fire?
I actually just saw him.
Saw Brian
yesterday.
A lot of people know Brian Downs.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, all of Andrew's whole family is that way.
It's funny. I was texting Andrew yesterday because I bumped into Brian, and then Andrew's dad, you'll laugh at this, brought me a 6-pack of Potosi Stingy Jack pumpkin beer. He just dropped it off at my house the other night. So I'm just I'm running through the Downs family here. But yeah, no.
Tom's fantastic. Wonderful people. And Andrew and I, you were there for a lot of this also, Chris, but when things went haywire at KXnO, every time things went haywire at KXnO over the last 15 years, Andrew and I were either a part of or the guys that were helping pick up the pieces.
You guys were.
You and I were slayed or tasked to slay the dragon, right? When Marty and Miller were going back on the air and they were putting us up against them. That sort of mentality was one that Andrew and I picked up from the KXnO side also, where we knew that things were going to get rough and things were going to get serious, and we had to all of a sudden go from being the kids sitting on the sideline to
you guys were in charge,
playing varsity. And man, a lot of really big conversations that I can remember, and today having Andrew on, they were all kind of rushing back through my head. I was with Andrew when he met his wife. My son was the ring bearer in Andrew and Judy's wedding. I don't know him. I don't love him. I love his family, his wife, his kids, his brothers, his mom and dad. There's just like you, and we were so lucky, man, that we got to call that work. For the majority of my adult life now.
Mm-hmm.
I got to call work, going and hanging out with my buddies and talking sports.
And he was our producer at the beginning. I don't think a lot of people were.
That's right.
Like probably 6 months or something.
Man, he was so poor guy.
Yeah. It really didn't work, and it wasn't anybody's fault because he was just like, I've done it on Twitter, but now I talk about it with somebody. But I've been trying to convey to people on Andrews last week that he's so much more than what you guys hear on Murph and Andy as the producer. Like the amount of, like the other night, me and him were texting. I mean, he was producing like Football Friday Night.
Dude.
Like he's in charge. And like it's so hard to find reliable people, and these producers on KXnO aren't getting rich people. Like so it's hard to find like good quality but he's the guy when I would come in on Saturdays, even before our tenure, to do post game with Whitford, Downs would be in there getting us hooked up.
Yeah.
But when you guys weren't there, and like it was and I learned real early just how much he put into that place. And really, I'll say this, he won't say it, but he probably never got rewarded for everything he did for that place.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And all the I could elaborate on every single point you just made there. They're all true.
Yeah.
I will just tell this story quickly. Last Saturday, so not bye week for the Hawkeyes, the night that it's bye week for Iowa State, Minnesota game. I look down the hall. You understand the setup. I'm in WHO, and there's clear windows. That's redundant.
Yeah. It's designed that way.
There are windows that go all the way through every wall so that you can see into every studio. I saw Andrew down in the KXnO studio, sitting down. I'm like, what the heck's he doing here on a Saturday night? So I went down there, popped open the door. I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing? He's like, oh, not much. Producing the Iowa Wild.
I figured that
game.
That's where this was going, yeah. And he's the boss. He's in charge.
He's in charge. What happened? A part-timer had called in sick.
Yeah.
So he's at Saturday. He is hanging out with his wife and his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a phone call from a part-timer that says, I can't come in to produce, to sit down for 4 hours and run the pregame, 3 periods, and postgame for the Iowa Wild. Tonight on a Saturday night, Andrew sends out a text to his very few employees because he's not allowed to hire anybody or get actual.
Completely neutered him in that sense,
right? And they write back and say, "I'm sorry, we have plans.
Yeah,
now it's on you. So now you cancel your plans with your family and you go in there, and you don't get to claim that he's not an hourly employee.
Yeah, he's not getting paid extra.
He gets nothing for that, and it is you've nailed it, man. It is the way of the world. It's a supply and demand world.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people this all the time. And we used to talk about this. Being on the air every year, think of the number of kids that graduate from Grandview University with a broadcasting degree. And how many of them want to be on the radio? Let's just say it's a half dozen, which is a really low number.
Mm-hmm.
It might be 10 times that some years. But let's say it's 6 kids. That's 6 kids that show up at my boss's door every year and say, I want Ross's job, I want Andrew's job, I want Chris's job, I want Murph and Andy's job, and I will do it for nothing.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll pay you to be here.
Yeah, that's how we've gotten to this spot.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And the boss's job is to make you...
And we did that too.
We did too. That's how we got there.
Yeah.
That's how I got there. I scrapped for every single loose item
you and
I could
Andrew
find.
were kind of like a tag team is how I always viewed it. Like, I wasn't an outsider. I was kind of like, I wasn't full-time there for a while, but I was always in the building, right? I did the racing show for KXnO. I did post-game stuff. I had a key. We'll put it that way. I wasn't a full-time but I was doing all that for free.
All of it.
I wasn't being paid for any of that.
Right.
Like,
And you saw, like when you say Andrew and I were a tag team, I love to hear you say that. Andrew and I saw it that way all along. From very early on, Andrew didn't want to be on that side of the glass that we were on. He wanted to be a producer. He wanted to be behind the board. He really saw himself as kind of a Dr. Dre type of character, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to be the guy that got to call more of the shots and not necessarily be out in the spotlight all the time. But he's really good out there. So Murph and Andy, because this is what Murph is good at, recognizing people's talents and highlighting that. He was able to pull Andrew into all those perfect situations that helped Andrew flourish early on. In those years where when Andrew and I were having that conversation of me moving to that other side, because I did start as a producer. I started hitting the buttons and doing all that behind-the-scenes stuff. And same thing on WHO. I was finding myself more and more on that other side of the glass and enjoying it and going, this is where I feel more at home. So we did. Andrew and I had a very real conversation about that, about here's the direction I'm going to go. Here's the direction I'm going to go. Let's divide our powers and conquer here. And so this is, it's really a hard thing to kind of wrap my head around. I've been listening to a lot of stuff lately that seems, because this is the way the world works. Yeah. God puts these things in your life. And I've been listening to a lot of stuff about teamwork and camaraderie and these people that you go through these trials with in your life, the bond that comes with that. And I keep hearing Andrew and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember my first real experience with him. I knew him. I was in, and this is how I got my start. I always filled in for Miller and Days. I was their guy. And then I did the same with Ken Miller. And I'd do it for free. I would just go in there which is fine. I was, agreeing to do it. It was giving me a platform to give me a shot to eventually land with you in the afternoons. And Andrew was Steve and John's producer.
Yeah, that's right.
And I just went in there one morning at 6 a.m. and just started talking to Andrew when he started doing this. And he had gone kind of like, he had never really been on the air before. Because it's Steve and John, right? They don't have guests. They don't
and they don't need any help.
Yeah, they don't. They don't.
Those are two monologuers.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And Andrew and I just hit it off on the air that day.
Because that's what you do. Andrew's a guy you hit it off with.
That was the start. And
listen, you might not like Andrew. A lot of people would say, "Well, I don't like Andrew's politics." Yeah. Have you ever met Andrew Downs? If you've met him, and he is one of those guys. If you meet him, you walk away and go, I like that
rational
guy.
Dude.
I like him.
He's a human guy, not a politics guy.
Right, exactly. Well, man,
I would say the same thing about you, because you lean conservative. Andrew leans liberal.
And he and I have
He doesn't lean liberal. He is liberal.
Very liberal, and I'm conservative.
You are conservative.
And he and I have maintained, and I said that this morning also, something I had never even thought of or verbalized was the thing I said this morning. He and I have maintained our relationship and friendship in a time when that's very difficult to do when you don't see eye to eye politically. And it helps that it's because of all these other trials and stuff that we went through in our professional life. But
well, in our business, it's a monumental week because he's just been the one consistent thing there through all the change. I mean, going back to Miller and Days.
Remember the first time we hung out together? Remember the first time that we sat down at a table and did this?
I believe we were cutting promos for that racing show that I did, right?
Okay, what I was thinking was the day we golfed in a...
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the Urbandale Country Club event, right?
Yes, and we ended up sitting down together.
But I had known you because I used to do, back when Iowa Speedway was hot.
Yeah.
Now it's picking back up.
Yeah, how about that?
Which is great.
Yeah.
But back when Iowa Speedway was like selling out like nationwide races and stuff like that in IndyCar, I did this pre-race show for KXnO and the Speedway, which was like a dream for me. Like I would have done that for free for the rest of my life because I just enjoyed it so much. But yeah, I went in there and cut promos and stuff, and you were my guy.
I remember
that was the first time
Andrew
I think I
saying Chris is going to work for Chris is doing this cyclone thing right now. He's going to work for NASCAR someday. I remember that.
I wish. And that's what I wanted back then.
I can remember sitting there and you started with these awful takes about candy corn.
No, okay, you want to get into it now?
We get into whatever you want. But I do remember. I remember early on thinking, "Is this a bit?"
It's no bit. Ross,
you know how many times people have said to me with stuff on you, dude? How many times people have been like, "Hey, I love it when you and Chris are talking. Hey, that thing about him not seeing, that's a bit, right? The thing about whatever, fill in the blank. That thing about blank, that's a bit, right?" What do you mean by bit?
You're gonna love this. So, report card time and book fair. They line it up together strategically. So when the parents go into the student-teacher conferences, the book fair is going on.
I know exactly. Yeah.
Told Cameron, we're walking in there the other day, if you get a good report, I'll buy you some books.
Yep.
Fair deal. I knew she was going to get it.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
She's an angel. The other one will not be an angel.
Okay.
The second one will not get these reports. I can promise you. So I give Cameron, dangerously, she's the kid I can trust to give a credit card to.
Okay.
She's not going to do anything stupid.
Right. She doesn't know what stupid is yet.
Elise would go and ring up $150 Cameron she'll feel bad about buying multiple books.
Yeah.
The books she picked out were What is Bigfoot?
Oh my God.
What do we know about crop circles?
Be still my heart.
There was one about Atlantis.
Yes.
And then she picked out, and I didn't even know this was made, a chapter book remake for kids remaking the movie Dumb and Dumber.
Okay.
It's called Dumb and Dumber, but it's like a graphic novel.
Huh.
Did
you read it?
I haven't yet.
I'm interested in that one.
Well,
I'm interested
I
in
might read it.
How they.
But you're asking. So
Okay,
people are asking,
I
is
love
it a bit? No,
It's not a
it's
bit.
not a bit. And my daughter is like naturally doing the same
Yes.
stuff too.
By the way, Atlantis. Do you know that have you heard this theory on Atlantis? This Eye of the Sahara thing?
I haven't done a ton. I got real into Bermuda Triangle for a while.
Yeah.
I never really dove into Atlantis. I probably should.
It's fascinating. So there's this thing that
It's like underwater, right?
the rickshaw structure. Not anymore. No, it's in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Atlantis
shit.
is in the middle of the
You
Sahara.
can
Not in the
cuss
middle.
here, by the way.
Not in the middle.
Not that you need to celebrate it. I just
The fucking rickshaw. No,
fucking Atlantis. It's at the bottom of the fucking ocean. Excuse me.
not safe for work.
Earmuffs, kids.
Earmuffs.
A little late.
The rickshaw structure, Richat, I believe is how it's spelled. Check it out. Check it out. And then when you Google it and you find, I'm going to say
Rickshot structure.
Richat, I believe. The rickshaw structure is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
It's in the Sahara Desert.
I'll
It looks
be
like a
damned.
giant eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Atlantis, dude. It's Atlantis.
Holy shit.
I mean,
Did they know this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are people that it's talked about.
Wow, look at that.
I
I'll be
have
damned.
gotten into ancient civilizations so much, Chris, over the last couple of years.
Well,
I found
those
this guy
Netflix documentaries will suck you right in. Did they do the ones on like the tombs? and-
So I found this guy on YouTube that talks about the pyramids, and it's fascinating.
These pyramids are
Fascinating.
insane to me. Like, I don't think aliens put
Neither
these
do I.
pyramids together. I truly don't think that. But like, it also shows you how ridiculous we are as humans
Yeah.
now. Like, we'll bitch about, like, we got cranes, we got all this stuff. Like, we have power tools, and we're all so lazy. These people spent their entire existence building these pyramids for like gods that didn't exist. Think about that.
Well, I'm going to send you this guy. There's a dude that thinks he found the actual use of the pyramids, and breaks it down in a fascinating way. You're going to love it.
Oh, I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So anyway,
Did you watch, real quick, and then we'll get into some of the scheduled topics.
sure.
Did you watch the new thing that Netflix did on Cleopatra?
No.
It's really good.
See, that's one I don't know much about.
Well, so it's kind of like, the way I read it, Netflix did a series on the Roman Empire like in 2018. It was like 3 seasons.
Is this why everybody talks? Because I keep seeing this thing of like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? I'm like, never.
Dude, I think about it all the time.
What? Okay, all right.
No,
okay,
but
okay.
So,
I think about ancient Egypt.
my
all the
point
time,
is,
so
if
that
you're
would be-
into ancient civilizations, like Rome is like, that's kind of like the cat daddy of it, right?
no, Egypt is
So if you're into Egypt, then you want to watch this Cleopatra thing.
okay.
Because it's like the downfall of her, and like she was, I mean, let's just be honest here. We're going to call a spade a spade. Bit of a hussy. She was very smart, very bright. But what she would do is she would like get these Roman emperors and stuff that she needed favor for and get them into bed.
Really?
She was so much smarter than they were. And she would take advantage of their,
Yeah, they're
because Egypt was a different culture. Like everybody was having sex with everybody in Egypt.
Yeah.
Like it was just a recreational, hey, what are you doing after we build the pyramid today? Come on over.
Don't lie. And you don't have to say which one. Was there a school in your community that was like that?
Red Oak
Yep. I said you don't have to say it.
in Glenwood.
And Glenwood?
Yeah, if you needed a good time, you went to Glenwood.
No kidding.
All my buddies, all my older friends, they spent their weekends in Glenwood.
Wow. Okay.
And they would tell stories when they got back. There could have been some embellishment. Did you know that she was with Julius Caesar? Cleopatra was?
Yeah, that rings
They had
a bell.
a baby together.
Yeah. Their baby.
And then Mark Antony?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, no, you got to watch it. It's phenomenal.
Okay. All right.
And make Audrey watch it too. It's very female empowering.
Well.
By the way, too, I promise we're going to move on. So
All right. You know me, dude. I'll do this with you for a long time.
I edited it out. So Cammie has her podcast.
Okay, yes.
And we did a new podcast episode last night. We recorded it on Halloween night. Last week, you'll appreciate this because you love doing stuff with your kids. Me and her watched every Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, fun.
In the last week. And did you know there's new ones?
Okay, hold on. You said every Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
There's the original Ghostbusters. Then they did a Ghostbusters 2 that kind of sucked.
I liked it. It's my favorite.
No kidding.
It's it's the one with the painting.
Yeah. And
I loved it.
Slimer is a much bigger role.
Yes. Did you know that Slimer was created to be John Belushi? So John Belushi was supposed to be a Ghostbuster. I read about this in Vanity Fair last night. He was supposed to be like Bill Murray, and he died. So then, paying homage to John Belushi, what's his name? Aykroyd created Slimer as like a joke to his friend to look like John Belushi.
Yeah. Do you know the scene where the ghost gets Dan Aykroyd off?
Yes.
Do you know that was initially supposed to be a much longer scene and is based on a story that Dan Aykroyd claims to be true?
Well, okay. It's all tying together now. Because Dan Aykroyd's entire family,
they're all ghost hunters and paranormals. All of them.
They're called spiritualists.
Yes, yeah. He's a fascinating guy. I'm not a huge Dan Aykroyd fan.
Well, he's great in Christmas with the Cranks. He's one of the top guys in that. He's the czar of the neighborhood.
I'm not a big fan of Dan Aykroyd.
It's his best work.
Okay. I'm going to leave all of that out there. I see what you're doing. I see you dangling the bait. I see you dangling the bait in front of my face.
It's almost that season, baby. Cranks time.
I've never made it through the movie.
Then you missed out on the touching scene at the end where Tim Taylor gives the cruise tickets to the old man and his dying wife.
Tim Allen plays another character named Tim.
No, his Crank's his last name. Arnold Crank or whatever his name is. It's a phenomenal show.
It's so bad.
So you've got Ghostbusters 1 and 2.
Okay.
In 2016, they created this feminist version of the Ghostbusters.
I've seen that one, and I actually didn't mind that one. I kind of liked it.
It's not bad. But it has nothing to do with the first two.
No. I mean, it's a...
they do rough plays off of it.
Yeah. I mean, it starts off with... they're trying to find. Yes. Yeah, there's a few storylines that run through.
2021, they released Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is a true sequel to the original Ghostbusters.
I've never seen this.
Ross, and it gets really good reviews too. This isn't like me saying oh, Freddy got fingered's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies because I was tearing up at the end. It brings everything together.
And it's
from the first two.
It's okay. All right.
I'll put it this without giving a spoiler. Spangler, the really smart Ghostbuster, he ends up deceased.
Well, yeah, because that's oh my gosh, can't think of. It's a shame I can't come up with his name. Oh, anyway, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it's his granddaughter discovers she's a brilliant science mind.
Yeah,
and she discovers that her grandfather was basically living in the middle of nowhere to save the world from the paranormal, and she discovers all this, and they end up, and then the actual Ghostbusters.
You got me,
dude. I'm telling you, at the end you will be choked because you feel all the feels just like I do.
I'm a feeler.
I was I had a lump in my throat. Yep. Cameron was bawling. It's phenomenal, and it'll be good for you too because this March there's another one coming out.
All right.
Which is a sequel to that.
Sign me up for Afterlife.
It's really good.
Have you seen the Ricky Gervais show Afterlife?
No.
Oh.
I do like Ricky Gervais.
Three seasons of it. It's fantastic. It's all the things that you just said about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Laugh, cry, all the feels. All of them. It's such a good show.
Were you a Ghostbusters kid like I was?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, Ghostbusters was huge.
Like we had a guy in town who literally turned a hearse into a Ghostbusters car.
Yeah.
And did all the birthdays.
Have you ever seen the Key and Peele Ray Parker Jr. sketch?
No.
Where they play on
He's the guy who sings the song,
He sings
right?
Ghostbusters. And the idea of the sketch is Ghostbusters is not the only movie that he sang a song about. And then it's Ray Parker's basically singing the plots to various 80s and 90s movies.
I got to see that. No, it's good. So anyways, so Cameron, we're doing this pod last night, and we're talking about, I asked her if she believed in ghosts. And she goes, yeah, I think I do. And she starts talking about why. And honestly, it's like an 8-year-old. It's very innocent. Like, whatever. Yeah. And then she starts going, but I'll send you the actual audio. I cut it out of the podcast because I didn't want my daughter to get black. Because I don't trust humans. Like, you're one of the first people you're one of the first people that taught me, don't trust anybody. Right. They're all out to screw you. And I don't.
I hate to say that because I feel like that's my legacy, but good advice.
If this clip of what my daughter said got out on Twitter, people would kill me. And I didn't even do anything. I don't know where she got it, but she starts talking about ghosts. And she goes, Dad, you know what? This is on the air. I think it'd be great if we had another gender. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, some people think that there's boy colors and some people think that there's girl colors. She goes, I don't think that. She goes, maybe if we had another gender. I think she was confusing. Like she was basically saying we need to acknowledge ghosts as like people. But she kept saying, and it came off as this like feminist rant. Because she is very like
That's funny.
It comes off as this like, hey, transgendered, like all the like hot button issues that everybody's bitching about right now. And I'm like, oh my God, if that like somebody would cut that up, some troll with an anonymous username on Twitter, and they would like accuse me of like planting like liberal seeds and poisoning my daughter's brain.
No, here's what I'm hearing Cammy saying. I would love to hear the actual audio.
I'll send you the audio.
But like, I'm walking through Lowe's the other day, okay? And I get back by the toolbox section. And they have these, like, I get that Tim Taylor, oh man, more power stuff. They have this bright pink, and I mean, we're talking like the big ass steel rolling.
I've seen that, what I mean? Ross.
They have this one that's all pink. All pink. It is a badass, heavy duty.
Yeah, it's like a cobalt. Like,
it's called like Big Pink or something like that. In case you happen to be one of them lady mechanics.
Yeah,
you can get yourself a pink toolbox. I'm walking through Target the other day. They have pickleball sets. You can buy a pickleball set, has 2 paddles and 2 balls. That's all that's in it. It's $60, by the way. Jesus, 2 wiffle balls.
Man, these
and 2
pickleballs just kind of taken off.
Crazy. You can get 3 different types of pickleball sets, Chris. You can buy a gray one. It's black and white, and it kind of has some gray, and it's kind of a neutral color. If you're a man, you can get the blue one. If you want to show people that you're a man that plays pickleball. But if you're one of them lady pickleball players.
See, that's what Cameron, it pisses her off.
It should piss you off.
Yeah, she doesn't like it.
And it should use. And again, I'm no feminist. I am a feminist, actually. I prefer women. I think women deserve special treatment.
They're better than we are.
They're way better than we are. But
we need to just have all females in charge of the world.
But that's what I hear Cammy saying there is like, man, why has everything got to be.
In like somehow she was saying like, man, if we could just like get along with the ghosts, they could teach us something, is what she was like leaning into. But it came off.
Kids write about that too, by the way.
Anyways, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of long, ongoing conversations we've had that we haven't been able to update people on with our thoughts. One is Jim Harbaugh. 2 is you've been ranting about candy corn again. 3 is this Rudy conversation that we've had for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Let's start with Harbaugh.
Okay.
So I actually thought I had one up on you. We've had a lot of these ongoing conversations, and we've discussed this, that when you give opinions for a living, you're going to be wrong
a lot,
and you just got to be okay with it and not get afraid to be wrong, because then that's when you really start to suck if you don't believe in your opinions.
Yep.
And I always really liked Harbaugh. I thought he would be a winner at Michigan. I didn't know if he would necessarily win a national title, because it's hard for a Big Ten team to do that. Like, you don't see it much historically. It's just generally the SEC, and every once in a while, Florida State or Clemson will win one. Harbaugh starts taking off, starts beating Ohio State. He's puffing his chest out. He has a little bit of the NCAA stuff, but I don't think it's a big deal, especially in today's day and age. That didn't really faze me.
Yeah.
Now we have this sign stealing thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote a piece in The Athletic this morning it blew my mind. I read it at like 5:30 in the morning. And basically, Bruce Feldman and Max Olson went and they anonymously interviewed 50 coaches in college football about what Harbaugh, his staff has been doing. This guy's like a Navy SEAL or what? He's like a Marine.
Yeah.
He's a really sharp guy who he's got going around doing this. And these guys are ranking this basically like a 10 out of 10 on the bad scale, like what not to do. Just blatant cheating. And it does all coincide with when they started winning. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. If you watch Michigan play, they have really good players. We can all see that. But when this stuff started happening is when they kind of turned the corner.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, you thought Harbaugh would self-implode at some point. I think it probably took a little longer than you thought it would.
It's man, what an interesting conversation, Chris, because I actually kind of, that time when he started beating Ohio State, I thought, you know what? Good for you, man. Good for you. You came back to what we would call home. You did the thing that you really needed to do, which is beat Ohio State. What he really needs to do is win that national title.
Yeah.
But he beat Ohio State. That was the first rung on that ladder. Now he's continuously beat Ohio State. There's no way you can deny the correlation of the two things, that this cheating scandal started to happen when you date it back. It goes back to right around the time they turned the corner. Now, I am of the firm belief that they're just the ones that got caught. This is going to be like Bill Self in Kansas, where 5 years from now or 7 years from now, whenever the NCAA finally comes around to punishing on this, it's going to be we're going to be like, well, this was happening all over the board. It was happening everywhere. I mean, this idea of advanced scouting is never going to go away. There's no way you could ever. What they did that was wrong was he was videotaping it and they were doing the electronic thing.
And it was so brazen.
Yes.
How they did it. Like they didn't give a shit. Or they were just that dumb.
And I don't think it was dumb because, like you said, man, maybe it's dumb. Maybe it's arrogance.
I just can't believe this guy was using his own name. And like they're alleged now to like have been on the Central Michigan sidelines watching Michigan State. Like all this stuff can be tracked, dude.
Yeah.
This is not hard.
It was all done electronically. And they've all left the digital footprints all over the place.
It's crazy.
Harbaugh has lasted longer than I thought he was going to. I thought it would be like a 3 to 5 year run and he would be bouncing out of there. And I also said it was going to be like Don Mattingly or anytime somebody comes home like that, there's only one way it can work. Titles. That's it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise you get fired. Even Pat Fitzgerald, who would have been the exception to this rule of like, well, you don't even have to win. He's at Northwestern and he's keeping the reputation alive.
Would you take him at Iowa?
Absolutely.
I would too.
Absolutely.
I had this talk with John Miller a couple days ago after the Brian Ferentz thing broke. And I'm seeing a lot of Iowa fans, and I get it. Like, Iowa fans are used to, our buddy Mike Palm always makes this point out at Circa. He's an Iowan.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, what in the hell is it with Iowa? The coaches never leave. Because, like, around the country, guys are there for 5 years, and then they move on. And, like, Iowa coaches stay for 20 years.
Yeah.
McCaffrey's on his way to doing it. Bluter's done it. Brands has done it. Before that, it was, right? Like, this is what they do. Hayden was there forever. Mm-hmm. Y'all have had two coaches in, like, 50 years.
I'm 45 years old, two coaches.
So I think Iowa fans are like, if Kirk hangs it up, let's just bring in this LeVar Woods. Everybody likes him. They've had great special teams. I personally think y'all are setting the bar way too low with this new deal that you're going into. This new big you're Ross, it's like, think back to when that would be like the Yankees, or not the Yankees. Put it this way, it would be like the Rays being like, we're just going to promote our pitching coach, when you can go out there and get in the NLE, AL East back in the day when it was so strong.
Good analogy there. Right.
I think that, one, you call Bob Stoops and you offer him $10 million a year. Iowa can afford it in this new Big Ten. You can afford it. Or you got to swing for the fences. A guy like Fitzgerald, don't just settle. And maybe LeVar Woods will come on and be the next Kirk Ferentz. I don't know. I don't think he will, though, because it's hard to replace that guy unless you have a bigger stature. And LeVar Woods will always be a Kirk Ferentz guy.
Chris, I don't know what it's a really big problem, and it's racing at you right now. If you're Beth Getz, you just hit the accelerator on it, so you better have a plan on what's going to happen, because with the way that Kirk has responded and reacted to the firing of Brian, I think that the train's coming.
They better hope he retires.
I think he does. I think that's probably what's going to happen. That's my gut right around. But
if he's this old curmudgeon 70-year-old man sticking around just to spite people,
then you're in big trouble for the next couple of years.
Because you're going up, your Big Ten West is gone.
Yep. Everything changes next year.
Yeah.
And you're right. I've said the same thing. Swing for the fences here.
And if
here's the crappy thing, if you're a Hawkeye fan, here's what that probably means. First of all, we have to acknowledge the end of Kirk Ferentz is going to happen. So it's just a conversation about when and what that looks like. Okay.
Yeah.
Phil Parker is a big part of this. Mm-hmm. What is, because that got brought up this morning on our morning show. What happens with Phil Parker? And do you just hand him the reins? Here's the truth. We all know it. It's hard to say it. A new coach has to bring in new coaches.
Correct.
The athletic director has to have a good relationship with the head coach.
Unless it's Stoops. I could see Stoops keeping Phil Parker.
That could happen.
And I could see Phil Parker being like, I'd work for that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's a Hawk.
And they know each other. I'm sure I think
it's the one job, Iowa fans, I'm sorry, you're going to get tired of me saying it. I think it's the one job Stoops would take. Going back home. Ferentz is his good buddy.
How old is he? 60-something still?
Yeah.
So
he's late 60s. I think it's the one job he would take.
Chris,
I don't think he'd go to Florida State. I think he would go to Iowa.
We will know by Beth Getz hire and by her, if we could know what her short list is, we'll know what her priorities are.
Can you hire Fitzgerald if you're Beth Getz with the Iowa
and
history
Chris,
with the?
You asked me if I would take Pat Fitzgerald, and I jump at that and say yes, right?
I think he's great.
Now, do I think that he's going to win in that new Big Ten? That's I don't know.
Question.
That I don't know. Would he maintain Iowa's relationship and reputation? And does he seem like a fine man to me? A lot like Kirk Ferentz. Absolutely, he does.
And he gets Iowa because obviously he's from there and he's done all that.
So what's your priority? Is your priority to win? Because if your priority it has to be to win, and I don't know if he's the right guy. If your priority is winning, if it's not, then you're going to be Purdue, or you're going to be Illinois, or Chris, there's a lot. That is a rampant attitude amongst Iowa fans. I get that, dude. You get this all the time with Iowa State. You've been a big part of trying to change this attitude from the absolute gutter at Iowa State to where it is right now. Iowa fans are stuck in this thing of like, hey, man, we're Iowa. What do you want? Yeah. What do you expect? You're Iowa, dude. I'm telling you this as an outsider because my team is on the outside looking in, right? The Big 12 is finally going forward. They're going to make a lot of money. Yep. I actually think it's the best thing ever for Iowa State because now they're punching it its own way. I totally agree. Conference is, I said it the day it was all out, that conference can be just fine. Oh, yeah, and it'll be fun. Yep. You're enough being the featherweight trying to punch at the heavyweight. Yep. You're never going to win that way long term. Now they can be a top 5 program in that league. I think it's all working out the way it should. But if you're Iowa, I'm looking at Iowa though, and you're at the big leagues. Yes.
So don't make decisions like you would have made it 20 years ago. Make a big league decision.
You started to get into soccer a little bit for a while, right?
I did, yes.
And anybody that's a soccer fan knows that there is a big separation between the haves and the have-nots. There are about 7 clubs at the English Premier League that are perennial contenders. Now, every once in a while, you get a Norwich City, you get a Swansea City, you get a team that flashes into relevance and then fades back away for a while. Iowa is one of those teams. We flash into relevance, okay? Now, here's what's changing. That relevance pool is getting bigger. You're going to have the college football playoff. The Big Ten is going to start getting a lot more West Coast exposure.
Yes.
All of this is going to change how big that relevance pool is. And now you've got a chance to become not necessarily a perennial powerhouse, but certainly hasten that cycle.
Well, and then like all the excuses people give me for like, well, we need this for recruiting. They know how to recruit. Like to me, like those arguments are just so tired because it's not like that anymore
at all.
It's about money. And Iowa's always going to have a head start when it comes to in-state and local and all that stuff. You got to be able to develop, but most importantly, it's your financial situation, which Iowa does not have as an excuse. Iowa State can use that as an excuse because but this new Big Ten thing, and eventually we're going to get to the spot where they're sharing television revenue with the players. In the next 5 years, we'll be at that spot.
I think you're right.
And then these Big Ten players are going to be making 3 times more than these other leagues. So like it's less of a LeVar Woods knows the recruiting territory. Like I'm sure he's a fine recruiter. I mean, he's a really good coach.
He seems like a wonderful man and all that. Everybody raves about him.
He might do a great job. I don't know, but you shouldn't just be like, yeah, that's what we always thought would happen.
He's
so
the
we're
next guy in line. So we should let him have the job. Chris, I completely agree with you. If he's the right man for the job, let him have the job, and I think he'd do wonderful. Shoot for the stars.
I also don't think that it's been talked about enough that a new AD, I would find it hard to believe that her first big hire, maybe her only big hire, depending on how it goes, would just be I'm going to promote the special teams coach into this new era. Like that seems hard to me.
I've been very public about. I have a short list, and it's one name.
Who's that?
Dion.
Prime time. That'd be sick.
I want Coach Prime in the Tiger Hawk.
Oh my God, that'd be great for us. Did you hear? I did a pod with Keeler.
I'm kind of joking about it.
I did a pod with Keeler a few weeks ago.
Oh, no way. I haven't talked to Keeler forever.
So he covers Prime.
No way.
Yeah, for the Denver Post. He's their lead columnist.
Oh, dude. I missed that.
So there's been like 3 of these deals where Prime's like gone off on tangents that Keeler asked the question.
Yeah. We're going to have to get Keeler on.
Yeah, you should. It's great.
Yeah.
And he's, oh my God. He made a great, he was comparing Dion. I was like, what's it like? He's like, well, it's a lot like covering Kirk Ferentz, except his kids are good.
Oh.
You got to go back and listen to the podcast. Oh, Keeler, man. He just says it.
We always liked him.
He just fucking roasts Dion, too. Like,
Keeler is one of those dudes, man. He's got a story to tell, first of all. His story to tell. But Keeler is a guy that's well-respected amongst those of us that, yeah.
One of the worst things that ever happened to our mediascape in Iowa
was losing him.
Yeah,
completely agree. Man, we've lost some really good ones over the years.
Well, we just lost, and I get it, and guys like me are part of the reason why. I can understand the hypocrisy for a fan site guy like me saying this. But we've lost not all. Because I would say a guy like you, fails, gives commentaries, who are just disconnected from these universities. Mm. You're a Hawkeye fan, but you're not connected to them. Like it's different.
I'm meaner to Iowa than I am Iowa State.
Hassel's the same way.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah.
But we've lost the guy or gal, whatever, who doesn't give a shit.
Yep.
And will just blow anybody up if they need it. And that was Keeler used to be that in our state.
I think you can see that in the way that Kirk Ferentz has reacted. His press conference, and again, I know this is not everybody will be hearing this today, but the press conference that he had immediately after Brian the announcement was made that Brian won't be coming back. He reacts different. He reacts to Chad Leistico. Says to Chad Leistico, well, those are your words, not mine.
Yeah, he's getting very testy.
He's getting that little, and that's...
I hope he leaves. and it's mostly for his legacy. Because I find it really hard to believe that an offensive coordinator worth a damn is going to go there. And you're also, based on the facts that I know, and the people I've talked to, you're kind of stuck in this Cade McNamara thing.
Yeah.
Which maybe he bounces back. And I actually, for his sake, I hope he does. He seems like a fine young man, but he's had two bad, my whole thing is if Kirk makes this next OC hire, can he really at 69 or whatever he's going to be, can he really swallow his pride and be like, oh, we need to modernize?
Old dogs, new tricks, right? I mean, it's going to be, he's been coaching football one way for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And
we're
here
just
at the very end, at the finish line, you're going to say, hey, by the way, release some of that control. I made the comparison to the old farmer this morning too, Chris. We used to talk about this when I would go on those tractor rides.
Yeah.
They would send me, I was 25 years old. I looked like I was 17. And they would send me out on these WHO tractor rides to tell farmers where to park their tractors in open fields, all right? And it instantly set into me what I was doing. Here's a guy that's 70 years old who's never had a boss. And I'm not talking about Kirk Ferentz. I'm talking about the farmer, but I'm talking about Kirk Ferentz. Here's a guy that has spent a lifetime without anybody looking over his shoulder, with no real boss, because he was Gary Barta's boss.
Yeah.
And farmers get to decide everything.
Yeah. I'm planting today.
Starting
harvest right now.
I'm pulling that rock out of the field. Yep. That tree doesn't go there anymore.
We're going to tear down that fence and we're going to move it.
All that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, he's rolling his tractor through an open field, and some 16-year-old pimple face is pointing a direction and yelling at him. Come on. Yeah. Right? And that's what that's to Kirk Ferentz, this has to feel a little bit like that. And I'm sorry, but in this scenario, Beth Getz is that 16-year-old looking pimple face who has shown up. Interim AD is her title. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this for 20 some years. Before you were even out of school, I was here calling the shots, and now you fire my kid
in the middle of the season, which is totally against everything I've ever said.
When I'm 6-2,
yeah, and in his mind, they should be 7-1, right?
So, I get it. I
do too.
If he's angry and wants to walk away, I get it. But I also see this as they laughed at us in our face as they lied to us for years and said, he doesn't report to Kirk. He reports to the AD because there's these rules in place. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that person, that athletic director says, oh, that's right. That's my job to fire the person when they suck. I'm going to fire them. They go, whoa, whoa, whoa. You didn't consult me. Well, you laughed at us for years and lied to us in our face.
Yeah. Kirk did this to himself.
Absolutely. And I that's the way to put it. Made your bed, lie in it. It sucks.
Boy, that was an uncomfortable press conference on Tuesday.
Chris, this is why nepotism rules exist.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's hard to untangle this stuff.
All right, we both have to get moving.
Oh, jeez.
Went really fast. Real quick on Rudy. You're throwing shade at me on Rudy.
Yeah, recently. Because people, they conflate our two opinions for our years of doing radio.
This is still getting talked about, our talks about Rudy.
And you are the one that is rude about your Rudy take. Okay, as per usual, I lead with my heart. I try to be inclusive in my opinions and bring everybody to the table. And
you're just bringing everybody together. That's what Ross is all about.
That's what I've been known for. Made a reputation
over on WHO
with Jan Michael. Rest his soul.
We're all about being inclusive over here, guys.
I won't even say what's going through. So anyway, some guy said the other day on Twitter, does Ross Peterson need to tweeting at Sean Roberts? Does Ross Peterson need to remind you that Rudy is a fake movie? I thought, this. Not only is this guy conflating my opinion with Chris's, but it's one of Chris's worst and most wrong opinions.
Incorrect.
Rudy is a real guy.
Correct.
He played for the real Notre Dame in a real football game. He got a real sack and then was really carried off the real field by his real teammates.
So why do all of his real teammates say it was fake?
False. One of his former teammates.
What was that guy's name?
Joe Colorado.
Joe Montana.
Montana.
Yeah.
Montana. Joe Montana. I've heard that name.
Did they,
before.
Does anybody have like photographs or video when the guys went in and turned in their jerseys and did all that? Do we have any evidence of that?
It was the 70s. You think that they had cameras in offices?
Yeah, we had cameras. We had video.
That is one of the part of it that is embellished. I think so. I think that's one of the parts that's embellished.
The man is real.
Yeah, very real.
The story is semi-real.
Yeah, for the most part, real.
I
don't know if he worked in a steel mill.
It was embellished. What about the guy that works at the stadium? He's always the GIF.
The black guy, the Rock.
Yeah.
You ain't got to prove nothing to nobody but yourself.
The entire story that was one of the reasons why Notre Dame got so big in the 90s. All these kids completely
big
fabricated to romanticize our minds.
Became a Notre Dame fan because of Rudy for a period of time.
Then I
have a Daniel Rudiger jersey.
I know you as well as anybody does. You, of all people, should be disgusted on how they manipulated you in the 90s.
I should be.
By fabricating this entire situation.
They played on my emotions.
They don't even like him. This Rudy's supposedly a big dick. If you Google it, he's a dick. He goes to these speaking engagements. He's a total dick to people.
I've heard that.
And you're going to just sit here and keep pounding your chest?
I'm not
it's real. It's real.
It's real to me.
It's still real to me, damn it.
It's still real to me, damn it. Yeah, there's something about that. They did. You've nailed it. They've manipulated my emotions. I should be pissed off about that, but I'm not.
You usually are the one person that I can count on to see through this bullshit.
I know.
And here you are. You're still pumping your chest.
Have my whole passionate John Wayne.
Golden Domers.
See, and the Notre Dame thing faded pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know where.
I still get sucked into the nostalgia of college football, though.
That I do.
The pageantry.
Yes,
that's still a thing for me.
You know, I have a great relationship with my dad, but there is something about that scene in Rudy with his dad walking in, and his dad is proud of him for the first time.
It was a great story that they told in the movie.
And it turns out that like a lot of that stuff is true.
This would be like the only difference is
his brother didn't marry his girlfriend.
Oh yeah, that was fabricated too. Interesting.
There's a lot of it that's fabricated.
This would be,
maybe now that we're talking about this out loud again for one last time, maybe I should rethink. I'm not going to burn my Daniel Rudiger jersey. It means too much to me.
This would almost be the same thing. The only difference is, Days of Thunder, which is my second favorite movie of all time, was based on Tim Richmond.
Yes.
Remember Tim Richmond? Yeah. Great 30 for 30 on Tim Richmond if you haven't watched it. It's only like 60 minutes. And Jeff Bodine. So Jeff Bodine was Rowdy Burns.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference in what we're talking about here is they changed their names. So that would be like me being like, man, wait, we're going to wipe Tim or Cole Trickle out. It's no longer an icon. Man, did you see that movie about Tim Richmond? Do you see that? Like, Tim Richmond's just a freaking icon NASCAR driver.
Can you believe his team had a stripper dressed up like a cop?
Did you know that Tim Richmond and Jeff Bodine rented cars and just beat the shit out of them on their way to a dinner?
They raced their wheelchairs down the hallways of the hospital. They were so competitive. And
I have to live with these Notre Dame fans that are like, oh yeah, it really happened. He really, I know they didn't turn in the jerseys, but the rest of it happened. And the guy, he's a total asshole, and all of his former teammates hate him. But it's a great story, and it inspires me, Ross.
You'll love this. The Days of Thunder scene where they're fighting in the hospital.
Yeah.
So that is a life imitated art situation with Nate Diaz. The guy he was fighting was named Joe Diesel Riggs. Okay? They beat the hell out of each other in the fight to the point where each one of them ended up going.
Are you serious?
I'm not making up a bit of this. Look it up. Nate Diaz.
This is a hard thing to make up.
It is Nate Diaz, Joe Riggs, hospital.
How old was
story.
Nate Diaz at that point?
I'm gonna find it for you here so I can. Oh, and of course I'm
connect to the 36 standard one.
We're gonna get there. But yeah, this thing basically they beat the hell out of each other in the ring. Or maybe it was one of the Diaz brothers. Went to the hospital. One of them found out. Like the Diaz brother was like, "Yeah, I got in a fight. I was in the UFC event. And one of the doctors is like, "Oh, the guy you were fighting is down the hall."
Oh,
He's
my
like,
God.
"Yeah, I'll be right back."
And
it
he
was
went and
Nick
kicked his
Diaz
ass?
and Joe Riggs.
Yeah, you got me hooked on the Diaz brothers too. Those are my dudes.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
Those are my
dudes.
guys.
Yeah.
All right, we both have to get going.
Love you, man. Thank you so
I
much.
love you
for
too.
having me.
Thanks for
Anytime.
coming in.
Tell Andrew I said hi when you see him.
I will.
Yep.
I will do that. Thanks to our sponsor, Steeple Ridge Bourbon, our Lonely Oak Distillery. Grain to glass, baby. Grain to glass. Signing off from the Channel Seed Studios. He's Ross Peterson. I'm sure we'll have him back again.
Anytime.
My name's Chris Williams.